offshore medical school announced to fill the void left by Ross University's sudden pullout from Dominica. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, July 30th from the CMC News Center in Bridgetown. I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. 11 months after Ross University left Dominica following 40 years of operation, the government has announced a new offshore medical school will take its place. Delivering the 2019-2020 national budget to Parliament on Tuesday, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt announced plans for the offshore medical school. He did not name the principals behind the new university, but he said Ross's replacement would bring significant benefits to Dominica.
I am pleased to confirm to the nation that an investor has been secured to establish a medical school on the Picard campus. The government has entered into an agreement with the Dominica University of Medical Sciences to allow the university to function. We have been advised by the principals that they have been aggressively pursuing the completion of recruitment of the faculty, and they continue to conduct interviews to fill non-academic positions. They have also been in discussion with landlords on matters related to the housing needs of their students. The Dominica University School of Medical Sciences projects a growth in the student population of no less than 2,500 students by 2023. The DUSM also proposes the establishment of a school of nursing and a school of pharmacy.
Last November, Skerritt had said his administration was prepared to take legal action against the U.S.-owned Ross University regarding the ownership and occupation of buildings on lands that had been leased to the offshore medical institution. During his budget address, he made no mention of that situation. Ross University relocated to Barbados, where it began operations in January this year. It had defended its decision to move, saying it was taken after considerable deliberations, including a review of its academic and infrastructural requirement and future plans. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Skerritt also announced that government plans to take to Parliament legislation to decriminalize marijuana. He said the legislation would allow for the regulated and controlled use of cannabis for medicinal, scientific, religious, and recreational purposes. Skerritt did not give a date for when the legislation will be tabled.
The government will therefore propose that the possession of not more than 28.35 grams, that is 1 ounce, of marijuana be decriminalized. We will go further and make necessary amendments to have struck off from the records of those convicted for marijuana possession any conviction in respect to the possession of 28.35 grams, 1 ounce or less. Madam Speaker, we do not believe that it is fair that an individual should be punished eternally for such an offense. This measure will impact in a positive way many of our citizens.
Authorities in Belize say the month of June had been the bloodiest so far this year, with an alarming murder count. According to the Police Crime Observatory, 66 people were killed between January and June, and 17 of those murders occurred in June alone. But Police Commissioner Chester Williams is refuting the observatory's report that the murders were all gang-related.
The month of June, we took a shellacking. That is the truth. Last year, June, we had 4 murders, and this year, June, we had 17. That's a significant increase. But again, any objective observer would concede to the fact that many of the murders in June were things that the police had no control over. It was not a situation where the gang violence was rampant and was getting out of control. The crimes that occurred in June, majority of them, over 80% of them, were not committed by gang members or persons who we know to be gang members. So let us not go ahead of ourselves and try to bring down the police. I am sure, and again, any objective observer would concede that gang violence has been down since January and remain to be down to present.
The government of Qatar has announced that its national oil company, Qatar Petroleum (QP), has reached agreement with French-based energy giant Total for a share of exploration and production rights in 2 blocks offshore Guyana. But the Guyana government is a bit in the dark about the deal. Under the agreement, QP will hold 40% of Total's existing 25% participating interest in the Orinduik block. The other partners in this block are the London-based Tullow Oil, with a 60% participating interest, and Eco Atlantic, the Canada-based development stage company engaged in oil and gas business, and that has a 15% interest. But the agreement between QP and Total is subject to approval by the Ghana government. And Director of Energy, Dr. Mark Abino, says the government is still reviewing it.
We have received a transaction letter from Total, which the government is currently studying. But until such time that we understand the full implications, because this is not a normal farm-in that we would have seen, we're not about to pronounce thereon. Because what we're finding here is Qatar Petroleum seeking to back in to the Total Guyana agreement. But we can't go further than that because it is still early days. We are in discussion with the COVI so that we can have greater clarity. At this point in time, it is still substantially unclear for us.
Over 2,000 representatives of credit unions and cooperatives from the Caribbean and around the world are in the Bahamas this week for the annual meeting of the World Council of Credit Unions and the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. Host Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis hailed the importance of credit unions to the region's development, while also recognizing a number of threats to the movement. More in this report from ZNS Network News.
The credit union movement comprises approximately 89,000 credit unions in 117 countries across 6 continents, with 260 million members and approximately $2 trillion in assets. In officially welcoming the delegates to the Bahamas, Prime Minister the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis encouraged the delegates to focus on topics vital to their sector.
I understand that over the next 3 days, a host of areas will be discussed, including cutting-edge topics such as blockchain technology and artificial intelligence. You must also pay particular attention to the increasingly regulatory requirements associated with credit union operations, including fiscal responsibility, anti-money laundering, and countering terrorist financing. Of urgency is the grave and existential threat posed by a heating climate, which will have devastating consequences on the poorest in our country.
The Prime Minister also spoke on the impact credit unions have on the region, particularly the Bahamas.
While most Caribbean countries are a single landmass or have a few islands, the Bahamas is a far-flung island chain. And while this brings economic benefits, it also poses enormous challenges for national development. This includes having to replicate on many islands and settlements the same essential and other services. Within this context, credit unions can play an essential role, especially in the many underbanked communities we have in our family islands.
Coming up, the Jamaica government warns of court action to deal with people who dump the elderly at health institutions. Stay with us.
After an emergency, you can help yourself and others by looking, listening, and linking.
Looking because you want to see if the person has some signs that is in distressing. Looking for the symptoms, how best you can support the person. And then listening, because listening is very important. Listening with your ears, listening with your eyes. If you do that well, then you'll be able to link them to the appropriate resources.
Be ready, look, listen, and link.
We got a breadfruit that has been peeled. There is a Christophine sitting on the table and 2 hairy coconuts.
Here from Steam St. Croix. Now, and I saw the foil sitting in it. Now I think I'm seeing what is going to happen with this pot. And they're putting that coconut right into the smoke, the fire part of the smoker. But on top of the smoker, the calf's liver. So much happening over here. St. Croix is on the top.
The Jamaica government is warning of court action to deal with people abandoning the elderly at health institutions across the country. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the practice is causing havoc in the health sector. We get more in this TVJ News report.
How do nursing homes ensure that they are paid for the care and the treatment they provide to their occupants? According to Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton, these homes have started to use an unconventional and illegal practice to penalize delinquent customers.
They just pick them up and carry them and drop them off at the accidental emergency and leave them. So their response to non-payment of fees is to have the hospital become the holding area for those persons. That can't be right.
He says 2 nursing homes in Spanish Town are now being investigated because of such cases.
So the same nursing home that is transporting and dropping off people here for you to look after them. Then when others come here who really need the service and can't get it because they're in a bed and you have 20 people waiting on a bed, then people hit the social media and start to talk how bad and wicked Spanish Town Hospital is, how wicked the government is that the government not responding.
According to the minister, some of the deplorable conditions and long waiting times that other individuals have to endure when they visit the hospitals are caused by these social cases, as these individuals occupy spaces and consume resources that could be allocated to other patients.
When these social cases occupy a bed, up to 50 persons are denied access within a given year for every 1 social case for a year in a hospital. And that is what contributes to the long waits for beds, persons who oftentimes come in the media sitting on chairs waiting for a bed. There is someone occupying that bed who takes up that space.
He says a few private homes are also being investigated for the same issue, and so the ministry is now taking action to nip the practice in the bud.
We're going to be pursuing through public education, through moral suasion, but if necessary, through the law, to deal with some of these issues, because we think it's unfair to the hospital and public health and to those who really need the services in the hospital.
Over in the Bahamas, the Agriculture Marine Resources Minister Michael Pintard says he believes the island will get to the point of completely banning chumming in Bahamian waters. Well, chumming is the practice of luring various animals, usually fish such as sharks, by throwing chum into the water. Pintard's announcement came as he opened a 2-day international shark symposium. The symposium comes on the heels of a horrific shark attack which claimed the life of 21-year-old American college student Jordan Lindsay. We get more in this ZNS Network News report.
The Bahamas is committed to supporting the protection of sharks and rays. That was revealed by the Minister of Agriculture and Marine Resources, the Honorable Michael Pintard, as he addressed the 2-day Sharks and CITES Symposium. CITES is short for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species in Wild Flora and Fauna. It's an international agreement between governments to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten their survival. With 400 species of sharks identified globally, officials are currently working to have the giant guitarfish, the wedgefish, and mako sharks protected as they are considered endangered globally. And with recent shark attacks here in the Bahamas, the Agriculture Minister says certain protections are being introduced.
We are examining with a view of dramatically reducing, and I believe we will get to the point of completely banning chumming in Bahamian waters. We have a very serious concern about the increased feeding of sharks, particularly in residential areas, on the periphery of restaurants that are seeking to attract customers. That to us is posing a problem given where it is occurring.
That's not the only concern of marine officials.
We believe it is important that fishers who are cleaning fish discontinue discarding the waste portion of the fish in waters in close proximity, especially to where persons are swimming. We are absolutely clear that this is a disaster that is waiting to happen, and we wish to move definitively, decisively to address this issue.
Additionally, Minister Pintard says tour operators and hoteliers will also be required to ensure certain stipulations are in place when it comes to shark interactions, such as proper training.
We strongly recommend and will take advice, possibly with a view of enforcing it or encoding it in law, that we have guides that are a part of these expeditions who will be on the lookout for sharks.
Last month, 21-year-old Jordan Lindsay lost her life in a shark attack during a snorkeling excursion off Sandy Toes Beach.
These are rare occasions, but notwithstanding the fact that attacks on fishers or guests or Bahamians are rare, they are nevertheless quite traumatic whenever they occur.
Mr. Pintard says the laws will be amended so that a person under threat of a shark does not face criminal charges if it is killed.
Ahead in sport, a former football administrator mounts a challenge for the top post in Jamaica football. We'll be right back.
Join global, regional, and local financial technology experts at the 3rd annual Central Bank Meets Blockchain Conference, Beyond Borders. Last year's conference was a sold-out event. This year's speakers will present on the role of central bank digital currencies in digital transformation within developing nations. Join us at the 3rd annual Central Bank Meets Blockchain Conference, Beyond Borders, September 10th, Hilton Barbados Resort.
Do you know, I'm really appreciative because I know this affects perhaps, hundreds of thousands of New Jerseyans, and of course people from around the area. Because of course a lot of New York, New Jersey, and so much of this area intermingle. So this really does affect a large percentage of our viewing audience. So first of all, there's something called the ADA. Could you please explain what the ADA is and how it affects people?
It's gonna be something special. We're gonna come together. It's a meeting of the island. There will never be a time like this one. We come to connect, share and invest. Turn the eyes of the world to CaribVision. Tell the cultures to come and bring the best. CaribVision 14.
Football tops our sports segment, and a former administrator is getting the backing of some financiers to unseat incumbent Michael Ricketts at the helm of Jamaica football. Tony James, who served in the late 1980s, is returning for another run. He says he was approached by football interests to bring about change in the administration of the sport. TVJ's Karen Madden has that story.
Tony James has been there, done that, and he's trying to do it again if he can get the sufficient nominations ahead of Wednesday's deadline. The former JFF president, who served between 1985 and 1992, is looking to make a late run after being called out by football interests who are not willing to sponsor the current JFF administration.
One of these people has all money on the North Coast, all money into football. And I think all the man is saying, he's willing to help to support the youth program, but he needs to have a vibrant youth program. He needs to have accountability. He doesn't want his money being fruited away because he has spent a lot of it and he has seen nothing much for his investment, and he wants to make sure that if he's going to help finance the youth program, that these things are in place.
At age 67, James could be considered too old to be seeking office again, but he says the younger people are afraid to challenge the incumbent.
Tony James doesn't need more than one term, less than that, to restructure football. I definitely wouldn't be going for more than one term because they are younger people, much brighter than me. There are people existing in the JFF who should be putting themselves forward. They have to be brought to the fore. You have to have respect for the seniority of those who have kept the game going and reward them accordingly.
And it's not just age that could be against James, but the time in which he has to launch his challenge.
It was never my intention to run, to be very honest with you. I thought that the people who told me they were running, who indicated that they were running, I'm a bit surprised that they didn't challenge.
Who?
They seemed somehow, I won't call names. They seemed afraid to challenge.
James says the current voting system, which sees only parish presidents casting votes, is flawed, as women's football representation has been locked out.
You have a president who is so close to women's football that she objects to nearly everything, and when the day comes to vote, who do you think she's going to vote for? If she can't understand that she needs to vote to protect that women's football game, what else are you to say to convince her?
Staying with football, Haiti has ended the Cayman Islands' bid for a spot in next year's Olympics. The Caymanians' hopes were dashed when the clash in the qualifiers at the Truman Bodden Sports Complex ended in a draw. Cayman 27's Jordan Armanese took in all the action on Sunday and filed this report.
All right, let's take a look at the action early on. Christopher Reeves picks the pocket of the Haitian midfielder, heads downfield, left wing, finds Elijah Seymour on pace. He goes airborne to tap it in, and Cayman is up 1-0, but Haiti would answer. Let's take a look at this right here, a little bit of midfield action themselves. Dotherson Clervaux makes his move, slices through the Cayman midfield untouched, fires from outside the box. Albertini Holmes with a save, but Peterson Joseph there to clean it up, and we're tied at 1. We head to the second half, 61st minute off the quarter. Mason Duval. Nice little lob here, beautiful touch pass. Leighton Thomas Jr. on the doorstep, he fires it home, and Cayman are up 2-1. But Haiti would respond again. The first minute of added time off a cross of their own. Peterson Joseph answers again with the header past Holness. This one would add 2-2. Haiti advance, and Cayman finished third behind Grenada. Here's head coach Ben Pugh.
Did enough to probably win the game. Obviously we went 2-1 up and we were in a good place, but we had to unfortunately push forward for another goal, and when that happens you always leave yourselves a little bit more susceptible to conceding, and that's what's happened, and we finished 2-2. But in terms of the players, I think they've been outstanding. Their effort's been, over the 2 games, has been second to none, so really proud of all of them, and bitterly disappointed to not qualify, really.
Well, we're switching sports now and turning attention to action in the Global T20 Canada on Monday. Kieron Pollard blasted a whirlwind half-century for Toronto Nationals, but Dwayne Bravo's Winnipeg Hawks pulled off a thrilling runs chase to win their match off the last ball by 3 wickets. Sent in at the CAA Centre, Nationals piled up an imposing 216 for 7 off their 20 overs, with opener Rodrigo Thomas top scoring with 65 off 46 deliveries. Pollard punched 52 off just 21 balls, while veteran Yuvraj Singh skippering the side lashed 45 off 26 deliveries. In reply, Australian opener Chris Lynn handed Hawks a sensational start, smashing a top score of 89 off 48 balls as he put on 48 for the first wicket with Shaiman Anwar and 117 for the second with Sunny Sohal. Lynn was then run out off the very next ball after hitting 2 fours and 10 sixes, and just 2 runs came from the next 4 balls to leave Hawks needing 4 runs off the last over. Riyad Emrit fell for 1 off the second ball, and with the scores tied, Hamza Tariq perished for 3 off the 5th. But Umair Ghani scrambled a single off the last ball to hand Hawks their second win. And veteran opener Chris Gale slammed his second T20 100, but rain had the final say as the contest between Vancouver Knights and Montreal Tigers ended in a no result on Monday night. Sent-in Knights piled up a record 276 for 3 off their 20 overs, the highest ever franchise T20 total and the second highest T20 total overall. The left-handed Gale was the catalyst with a breathtaking, unbeaten 122 off 54 deliveries with 7 fours and a dozen sixes. Facing a record runs chase, rain during the break then prevented Tigers from facing a single delivery as the match was eventually called off due to bad weather. And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
When IndyCar hauled to Motown, Honda hoping to keep the good times rolling. Honda's IndyCar stars had swept the previous 2 Motor City doubleheaders. Graham Rahal doubling in 2017. Ryan Hunter-Reay and Scott Dixon splitting the wins a year ago. This year, Mother Nature controlled Saturday. Severe weather delaying the start nearly 2 hours, causing the event to be shortened. Still wet when the green finally came out.
When you think of what we went through with Hurricane Irma, you had to be able to recognize what are the things we need to do to cope with the aftermath. The psychological trauma, to me, is probably the most telling on a lot of people.
Preparedness is the key. So when people are prepared, when people have what their resources in terms of how they can cope with the disaster, they're better able to be able to return to their normal life. They're better able to make decisions that are informed for themselves and for their family and then for their community. Be ready. Look, listen, and link.
And that's Caribbean Newsline for news and sport around the clock. Subscribe to CanadaNews.com, and for more of our programming, you can log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.